A big howdy to everyone joining me today as I take you on a wonderful tour of Big Bend National Park. When the sign says big, it means Texas big. This video will show you the vast expanse and beauty of this park, complete with mountains, amazing wildlife, and one of the quietest and darkest places you will ever visit. I'm going to show you the 3 major campgrounds and highlight the ones that are most accessible for anyone with a physical challenge, as well as show you some of the scenic spots. So let's saddle up and get right to it. Before we hit the trail though, would you do me a big favor? And if you enjoy this video, would you hit like or share, or better yet, subscribe to see more awesome places like Big Bend. The first thing you might want to know is where Big Bend is located, as you are not going to pass it on the interstate or make a day trip after going to the Alamo. Big Bend is named after the large bend in the Rio Grande River, located in southwest Texas along the border with Mexico. Big Bend is about a 2-hour drive from most of the cities around it. Most people arrive by driving Highway 385 out of Marathon, Panther Junction, and the park headquarters. Alpine is a great place to stay if you're not interested in camping. The Hampton Inn there has accessible rooms, and there are great restaurants in town. The only lodging inside the park is the Chisos Mountain Lodge. There are 3 major campgrounds: Chisos Basin, Cottonwood, and the Rio Grande Village, with a 4th RV park near Rio Grande Village that has electric hookups. Chisos Mountain Lodge has 72 rooms, and there are 4 ADA rooms available. 1 room has a roll-in shower. The campground at Chisos Basin has 56 sites with no electricity and are available by reservation only through recreation.gov. As you begin your drive through the park, you will be amazed at the diversity of the desert plant life, like yuccas and cactus, along with spectacular wildflowers, including bluebonnets. Mountains seem to jump up out of the desert landscape, indicating millions of years of wind and water at work. The park was established in 1933 as Texas Canyon State Park and designated Big Bend National Park in 1944. It is 1,252 square miles, and its highest point is Emery Peak. It is home to 1,295 species of plants, 75 species of mammals, including bears and mountain lions, and over 450 species of birds, some of which build their nests directly in the cactus. It has over 200 miles of trails and is enjoyed for its wilderness environment and is one of the most representative examples of the Chihuahuan Desert. Over 580,000 people enjoyed camping, hiking, rafting, bird watching, night sky viewing, and 124 miles of scenic drives in 2021, which is a substantial increase from previous years. I was lucky enough to visit the park at the peak of bluebonnet blooms one year. The bluebonnet is the state flower of Texas and covers the Texas hill country with a carpet of blooms each spring. But that variety typically only grows 10 to 16 inches tall. The desert variety in Big Bend has a somewhat smaller, compact plant base, but the stems and heads grow to almost 3 feet tall. It was a magical sight to see these blue sentinels blanketing an area that only gets 14 to 16 inches of rain a year, and is typically covered with plants that all seem to have stickers or thorns. You can see the long, tall branches of the Ocotillo cactus starting to bloom with their reddish-orange flowers at the tips, and I'm told that right after the bluebonnets bloom, the creosote plants paint the landscape with a buttery yellow. The eager wildflowers literally grow out of the cracks in the rocky cliffs. The great thing about Big Bend is you don't have to hike or even walk very far to enjoy it. All of my pictures and videos were taken from my car or path, making it the perfect accessible journey. Let's head to the Chisos Basin, which follows a narrow winding road to a fairly compact campground nestled in the basin of this mountain range. Be sure and check the park website because construction and delays are not uncommon on this road. The area also has a lodge, a store, and a trailhead for many great day hikes, as well as wheelchair-accessible path that leads to some wonderful views of the window. The fauna and flora in this area of the park is extremely unique, as the bulk of the park's elevation is around 1,800 feet above sea level, while Chisos Basin is at 5,400 feet. Temperatures in the basin can be 10 to 20 degrees cooler, which is important when you consider summer temperatures can reach 115 to 120 degrees on the desert floor. I prefer to go during the early spring, which is late February to March, before it gets too hot. The only problem with March is that Big Bend is a major attraction for people on spring break, so plan accordingly. We enter the Chisos Basin Campground. You'll find that 56 sites are primarily in two loops. The accessible campsite number is 37. It is actually one of the best sites in the campground, as we will see in a minute. It is surrounded by peaks and rock formations and has an area called the window, which allows a view to the desert floor below. The Chisos Basin has a totally different ecosystem than the surrounding desert and is a favorite of an amazing number of birds. Rocky walls are spectacular and provide a great view for morning coffee and relaxation. As we enter the campsite, you'll see that the campsites are rather rugged, but many have spectacular views. We're not going to look at every campsite, but these are representative of what you'll find. Bear boxes, picnic tables, and a small pad, which is perfect for a small RV, but most of the campsites would be best suited for tent camping. Campsite 23 is a fairly level campsite and backs up to the bathroom and also the accessible campsite. Number 24 also has reasonable access right through the rocks, and the concrete pad with the picnic table is accessible and flat. Site number 25 is up on the hill, and there's a narrow spot where you can get to it right there between the rocks and get to the picnic table. Again, this is a pull-through with a very small, flat area. As we come around the loop, you can see the trash containers are all bear-proof. There's a bathroom with a sink there to do dishes. And the accessible campsite, number 37, is a very nice site with a nice driveway and nice concrete paths that go up to the picnic table. Here's an idea of the view from the campsite. We set up our trailer in the pull-through area and basically sleep in the camper and set up everything on a picnic table or other tables that we bring. The nice big concrete pad with the picnic table and the fire pit are great, along with the sidewalk that takes you to the restroom area. We set out our solar panels and our camp boxes. You'll notice the picnic tables have the overhangs so that a wheelchair can get on the ends of them. And that's where I like to cook. I never got tired of looking at this spectacular view. During breakfast, a strong wind came along and blew off one of our packages of oatmeal. It didn't take long for the white-winged dove and some other local volunteers to come in and help us clean up. I noticed grass and leaves constantly being kicked up around the trees and thought it was an animal, but it just turned out to be a spotted towhee searching for food. I was pretty surprised at the number of birds that came to our campsite, many of which I had never seen before. Here's a view of what's called the window, a narrow space in the rock where you can see the desert below. Let's head out to Rio Grande Village and check out the campground there. Keep your eyes peeled as you drive through the park, because that shadow or dark spot or movement could be a large deer, or in this case, a squadron of javelinas, sometimes called a peccary. They like to forage on the roots of prickly pear cactus, and you can see these guys were feasting not far off the side of the road. As we take a look at the campground map, you'll see that there is one accessible site, number 14. We'll look at that in a minute. Here's your typical campsite in Rio Grande Village. Gravel or asphalt pads, limited trees. However, site number 14, the ADA campsite, had a nice concrete pad, a special picnic table, a cooktop, and a nice flat area in front of it with an overhead shelter. Here's a quick view of the RV area that is all electric and run by a concessionaire there in the park. As you can see, it's pretty tight quarters, but people are willing to do that to be in this beautiful area. Our next series shows part of our drive up to Alpine, through Marfa, and down to Presidio for a wonderful scenic drive on a winding up and down road that follows the Rio Grande. It is a favorite road for motorcyclists, and I have to admit, I enjoy driving my Braun Ability Toyota van down this very fun road. There are a lot of turnouts for pictures or a picnic lunch, and the scenery is quite spectacular. You can see the Rio Grande down below us. At this time of year, it is very shallow, can easily be waded. You also pass by the entrance to Rio Grande State Park, and here you can see the winding road that goes through this area. We were lucky enough to spot a couple of pronghorn antelopes. Although native to this area, the state of Texas Wildlife Department does capture and relocate almost 100 of these antelopes in the panhandle north of Amarillo and relocate them to South Texas. Many people don't know, but they are the fastest animal in North America. Next is the enormous cliffs carved out on the Mexico side of the Rio Grande. Millions of years and millions of tons of dirt and sand have carved these cliffs just like sandpaper. We were told that in the spring, when the Rio Grande rises due to spring rains and snowmelt at its headwaters, you can actually hear the hiss along the river as Mother Nature sands away these massive rocks. The St. Helena Gorge is quite beautiful, as it is very narrow and the cliffs rise up steeply on both sides. Our next stop is Cottonwood Campground, which is quite secluded. It is located almost on the border of Mexico, and the Rio Grande is an easy walk, and you can canoe or raft during different times of the year. I did not find it particularly appealing, but everyone has their own idea of fun and camping. When we arrived, we were met by a very friendly camp host. His English was not very good, but he was very curious about us and ran right to us, so I assume he doesn't get too many visitors in this neck of the woods. He did put on a good show for us, but we didn't have any small change for a tip, so we just drove on. The campground at Cottonwood is rather desolate. It does have bathrooms, but as you can see, each campsite has very few trees. We drove through Castolon, where a wildfire jumped the Rio Grande River from Mexico in May of 2019 and burned for 13 days and destroyed over 950 acres, including the barracks, store, and other structures built and established in an area where natives, Anglos, and Mexicans farmed the floodplains of the Rio Grande in a bicultural way. From 1912 to 1920, the Army established a post as the Mexican Revolution brought unrest to the area. We continued our drive home, past mule ears on the way back to the Chisos Basin, and our favorite time of the day. Most nights we would take the wheelchair-accessible path from the Chisos Basin store and go and sit on the rocks with a host of total strangers preparing for sundown at the window. From the burning tree all the way to sundown, the clouds and colors and textures were a masterpiece. I tried to pick just one or two of the photos of the sunsets, but I thought I would share a sequence that reminds me of that beautiful evening. It was a great ending to a great adventure, and I was amazed by how much we saw. The next morning, we left around sunrise because we had about a 9-hour drive back to home, which is still in Texas. In Texas, we say it's a fur piece getting back home. I hope you enjoyed this amazing, accessible journey through Big Bend National Park, and we look forward to bringing you more adventures. So long. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, I hope that you will like it and subscribe to our channel for future journeys. The best thing you could do is share it with somebody that you know that doesn't get out much, and maybe inspire them to either tag along with us on our YouTube channel or get out themselves and enjoy Mother Nature.